Good morning, evening, or afternoon, whichever one's going on for you at this current point in time. Got a couple of things. This is the Ridgid mobile miter station, otherwise known as the mobile saw stand or the utility vehicle, bunch of different names. Basically, you put your miter saw up here and you take it wherever you go, right? So I'm going to put this thing together. Now the brackets are compatible with the flex and some other stuff. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just for Ridgid miters. So let's do it. What's your problem? What's your baby? Little baby. Okay, no distracting. Now, to be clear, one of the biggest selling points for me was that it is, in fact, covered by Ridgid's LSA. So, these are the brackets that hold down the miter stand. I'm glad that I don't have to go buy aftermarket ones. They are compatible with the flex miter stand, or the flex miter saw. So, wheels are pretty straightforward. They are like a rubberized plastic. Now, as per Ridgid, you are going to need two 12mm combination wrenches. You are going to need two 13mm wrenches. You are going to need two 17mm wrenches. And since I don't have two of each, I'm going to be using an adjustable wrench to make up for the difference. All right? And you're also going to need a Phillips screwdriver. And for those of you who are unclear, no, none of the parts have a letter or, you know, some kind of depiction of what they are, but there is a parts list that has a pretty relatively decent picture and a list that goes through all the measurements and what each thing is. So the first thing we need to do is get the axle bolts so that we can get the wheels attached. Now it says that the axle bolts, which are these right here, you won't confuse them with the shorter ones because, one, it does say that you need a washer. First thing you want to do is axle bolt through the tire, through your washer, and then it goes in through the frame. It says to keep it on the right side. So grab your hex nut and let's get the tire on. You're going to do the same thing with the other one. Instead of using fancy tools, all I have are hand tools because that's probably what you might have at home. So I am omitting the cordless ratchet. I'm even giving up the regular socket and ratchet in lieu of, you know, maybe y'all don't have it out there somewhere, and that's okay. Now don't worry, maybe your father abandoned you when you were younger. That's totally okay. That's what I'm here for. Next step is going to be putting in the handle. Now, from where you're watching, I stood up the stand. It already has wheels, so we're okay. You grab the handle. It's the black one. Not to be confused with the one that has the curve. The one with the curve, not yet, alright? You're going to use the one with the Phillips head that has the acorn nut. You want to know why they call it an acorn nut? I'll give you a hint. It's because the little nut looks like an acorn. Yes? Now, you line up the bar with the hole. Me personally, this is my preference. You could put it either way. I like to have the simple side on the outside and the nut side inside the bar where you can't really see it. You're going to need your Phillips screwdriver, like so. And on the inside, you're going to need your 13mm. Just grab it. And again, you're not giving these things impacts. Just snugging them down to make sure they've got a nice tight connection. If you start to see the pipe is deforming and bending, you're squeezing it way too tight. Relax. Again, this is not going to go anywhere, so you don't have to give it the grip of death. So same thing as the handles. You're just going to line it up with the holes, slide it in until they make their connection, and just to give you a little perspective here, you're going to slide them down until these holes line up here. In case you're confused about which fasteners, it does say tighten them down with the wing nuts. So each of the steps that we've seen so far, they have specific bolts, so you're not going to mess it up and mismatch the brackets with where the fasteners go. Now from this perspective, once you have your frame support in, the holes are lined up, you're going to bring in your screws and tighten down your wing nuts. Same thing on the other side. The way the picture shows, it wants the inside to have the wing nut, so wing nut goes inside. Now these little shoes, they go on your frame support. So when you're in the standing position, you're not doing your cuts, these little shoes and the frame support are going to be touching the ground. When you're in the cut position, like so, you are going to have these little shoes touching the floor or the ground in addition to your wheels. Yes? And in case you don't have a good grip to just put them on regularly, you can twist them on one side while using the 13mm. Good. Both sides done. Let's move on. Next up, with the standing position here. What are you doing over there? Hey, what are you doing? You stay over there, okay? Anyway, with the standing position, and again, they tell you do not stand it until you have your frame support, your wheels, and your handle installed. But the next thing we're going to do is bolt in, let me come in through this side. We're going to be bolting our top rail to the central frame. So, for reference, top rail, center frame. And this will also require your 17mm wrenches. Once you're in a standing position, my handle's right here. It's a bit of a short angle. You're going to press on the little unlock lever carefully. With your handle, you're going to press it down slowly. And it's going to bring your table or your station into the open position. Here is where we're going to get the rails assembled so we can get our miter saw on. We now have the handle, the frame support, the top rail to the center brace, and the wheels all installed. All that's left is to get the work supports and the rails or the brackets that sit on the rail for our work. Let's do it. And probably the part that everybody cares the most about, and that is attaching your saw. Now, this is what they tell you not to do. Do not put it onto the stand until these stand brackets, let me get you in here closer, right? So these are the brackets, right? You get a special, different assortments. They have the smaller ones, and they have the lock washers and nuts. You're going to run them through. Again, just line up the holes where your brackets hold on to your miter saw, and never use this when you don't have all 4 of the screws or bolts in where they should go to keep your saw staying where it's supposed to. Now once it's attached, these little tabs, they kind of look like the miter saw adjuster for when you're doing different cuts, but you're going to click this down into place once it's on both bars and attached to the miter with the bolts. You're going to click this into the locked position, and be very careful not to do this too hard, right? So for me, it's tight, like really tight, but it closes down. This is the locked position. Again, that's the open position. This is the locked position. All the way down, locked in place. This is what's holding your miter saw on the stand when you put it into the standing locked position. If this is up, but your miter brackets are still on, the brackets when you stand it up could let go, and the brackets with the miter will just go tumbling to the floor, or maybe it'll hold for a little bit and the brackets will just kind of slide. Either way, you don't want to risk an expensive machine over just a few seconds of thought. All right, make sure it's tightened down the right way, snug down with a washer. So let's get these in and give these a couple of cuts, and I'll send you on your way. Sound good? Now, rather than you fighting it down while it's already in place, take the bracket out. You're going to feed your bolts. So they do come with longer ones or shorter ones. In my case, the flex, so I have to go with the long ones. And don't worry, the instructions do tell you the order. So the bolt has to be from the bottom, not from the top. The square design keeps it locked into this brace or this bracket. Then it's going to be a flat washer like so, followed by these offset or crush washers, right? The little ones with the cut ring, yes. And then you finish it off with a hex nut. Sound good? Pretty straightforward. Now, once everything is set up as far as the bolts, they're going to want you to carefully move into the center as much as possible, depending on the size of your miter saw. Get it as centered as possible for balance, and then once it's on, you can lock it down into place, and that's going to cement your miter saw so it's not falling when you put it in the standing position. All right, so the back part does have an opening here, so I'm able to do that one without, but since my flex miter saw is super long from front to back, I have to get it in, set it down on the bracket, and then it should release enough tension for me to slip it down onto the track. Come on. Or, okay, so from me, and then it sits down, locks into place, and then you're able to, it says they want you to put a 2x4 of wood under the saw, so it's easier to manage, but if you're hard-headed like me, just have good balance, good balance, and a mix of decent strength. Right? Now my bolt needs to come in. Woo! And that's why they want you to be very careful, because you don't want any bad things to happen. Also, they don't want you to have the bolt sticking up past where the material is. So that's also something to keep in mind. So if you need to use the shorter bolts, use the shorter bolts. Alright, this is going to be a 13, but I'm just going to grab a 13mm socket because this is too deep and I'm not getting enough tension. So 13mm socket. So pull it through until it's all the way snug, and once it has absolutely nowhere else to go, it's got the right tension from the bracket, now we can come in and snug it down with a 13mm, preferably if you have a deep 13mm, but if anything, something you could always do, set it down in and just give it good tension by hand, and just let it be like a pass-through socket. So this is plenty of tension by itself. There's no need for me to go in, even though I technically could, and give it a couple more threads. There's no need. This is plenty tight. Once you see that that washer kind of sits flush, that's down and tight. If I wanted to be a little extra, I could take my rotary and just cut this across to make this shorter, but given that the bolt is under my workstation, it's not an issue. Let me just check to make sure it's not an issue with my, yep. Oh, it is technically, I am technically able to get to my 60, but it is kind of getting caught with the cable. So that is not the fault of Ridgid. I just have to slightly shorten these bolts, probably just like 1/4 of an inch. Not that it's going to matter or change anything. Just try to make a consistent cut so you're not messing up the threads. In case you have to take these nuts off later, you don't have to go cutting and buying new M8 bolts. So same thing on the other 3, and I'll be right back. Now the absolute last thing we have to do, once all of our brackets are where they're supposed to be, I'm going to slide this in just to get it centered. We're going to put in our work supports and our work stops. They're just little plates that kind of limit where it sits, and make sure they line up with the flex supports for the flex weights. Hold up. Right. So we want to make sure that if we're passing material by, it's not hitting here. It's nice and level. So if you're using, 8-foot studs or whatever, everything is going to be gliding from where it's sitting all the way until we make our cuts. Sound good? And all there is to it is just dropping your work supports into these square frames. They do have a hole on the side, so all you have to do is put in the long handle knobs or the long screw knobs on this side. The shorter one is going to go into a hole in the frame with threads, and that's to adjust the height. So once you find the right height, in this case, go get yourself a level so that your work stop or your work supports is going to line up with whatever's integrated with your saw. Once that's done, you give this a tighten, and this will stay at that height you need it to be. With that being said, I saw these at the bottom of the box. I didn't notice them until the end. And that is little foot supports or little feet for where those wing nuts go for the work support or the frame support. So all I have to do is just take out those screws, put these little rubber feet in, and then bolt them back in. That's all. But that is essentially it. You can now, let me just open up the saw, and that is all there is to it. She is ready for business here, and pack her up and take her wherever you need to go with the mobile station. This is freaking cool. Shall we cut something? I think we kind of have to. Now, I love y'all and whatever, but I'm not wasting premium fur studs or anything like that. So I just grabbed a little bit of cheap 1x material, super cheapity. And people are like, why do you use a 2.5 or why do you use small batteries on a miter? Listen, if they weren't working with them, they wouldn't fit the miter. A 2.5 or a 1.5, if you're only making a couple of cuts, not a big deal, all right? So, I love that shadow line. I wonder if y'all can see that. You see the shadow line right there? Tells you exactly where you're gonna cut. That's awesome. BEA beautiful. One more, just for safe measure. I'm gonna go all the way through this time. Now for your saw, obviously, once you center it, right, 0, these adjusters here have your supports integrated. So once you open it, slides out, and you're able to put your material, like these are some 2x4 premium studs. So this, for example, if you want to have it here supporting your work, but you see it's kind of at a downward incline. That's why I said you have to loosen, not this one, loosen this one, and get you a light, loosen the smaller one, and then you can raise the material up until it's level with your work surface. Now the only thing on the other side is that the adjuster's not here, it's on the back side. So if you're standing on this side of the miter saw while working, you do have to come over here, loosen this one, and adjust that one. But the knobs work the same. So yeah, all the surface you need. If you're doing some studs, you get about that much from there to there. Now there's something that I did not like about this table, and it is the work supports. It would have been awesome if they would have been like other ones where these had bearings in them and the material would kind of roll over this instead of just dragging over this plate. So not a huge deal, but you know, it is what it is. But if these had bearings inside, that'd be awesome. And because they are technically wearable parts, Ridgid would cover them. And then I could just buy it for this instead of needing a whole new table. That's one. Two, small detail here is that this, just for perspective, let me back up a little bit. This hole, this hole, this hole, and this hole, you could take the dimensions from here to there and from here to here and make like a small worktop piece with some scrap wood. So there's that. This is perfection. Everything I needed in a saw, everything I needed in a table, it just does it. Apart from the roller, but that's, you know, that may be addressed in the future. Shout out to Flex, bro. This saw is a really good one. Okay, for anybody who's trying to register this for the LSA, of course, do it. You got to come right behind this tabletop, right in here, and you have your serial number on this little sticker here, right? Right in there. Let me see if I can zoom in action. And it is 300-pound weight limit, so know your limitations, all right? Now, really quick, as far as registering this thing for the lifetime service agreement, you're going to click register new purchase. Right? When this opens up, you need to put the model number. This is not the 95. This is the AC9946. Do not confuse that with the 95, the previous model. When you click next, now you see how there's no picture here. Do not go back and put the 9945 because it will give you the picture of the table, but you will be registering for the wrong tool. So when you send in a 46, they're going to say, this is not what you registered. We can't touch this. Now you're going to have to fight with customer service, get a receipt, get a picture, PDF. You might have to go back to the Home Depot and have them reprint the receipt. Don't do that to yourself, all right? Just because there's no picture here does not matter, all right? Put the serial number in, and then let's move to the dashboard because I've already done this. So it's already in, right? It's here. The picture will show up after the thing is registered. Now it's still pending because I just signed up for it. So they're going to look through, make sure all the receipts and everything line up with the right dates. And within 90 days, you should be registering your Ridgid tools. Otherwise, it's limited coverage. And after that, you're on your own. All right? Don't worry, this isn't dangerous as long as you're not actuating anything. Again, guards down, it's away, but always keep your stuff locked. You know, yank your battery, put your hard hat on, safety stuff and all that. But yes, there is no danger if there is no blade spinning. It's okay. Stop being scared of your tools. Be smart around them, to be clear. But if I hold the wood here, I'm okay. It's only when the blade is spinning that my hand here is going to cause some problems, okay? Relax. You got this. All right. I hope you like this video. And if you're in the market for a station, I mean, this is pretty much the best thing that you can grab. Both locked into place. And if you need to take it anywhere, make sure you lock your saw down. That means the rail, make sure it's not spinning anywhere. People say take out the battery, I guess. But you hit the little safety latch and your saw is now chilling on its side and locks into place and ready for you to go wherever you need to go. Isn't that cool? So you have yourself an excellent day and work smart.